Judith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Darganowwood resident asked me to pay tribute to Judith because she was an active member of West London Bowling Club, and she's well remembered for helping residents with any issues they had in regard to this place. They call her the People's Councillor, a rare treasure. And after my election 2022, I met her by Grenfell Tower and I asked her what advice she would give me as a newcomer to local politics. And she took time, obviously, and told me just one thing, that do my work and residents will remember me and they will appreciate, and she said nothing else. I think it will be appropriate, if you don't mind, to play literally under 1 minute her recording from her campaigning, just to let her be heard here for the very last time.
Hello, my name's Judith Blakeman. I'm standing for re-election as a councillor for Notting Dale Ward. The reason I am seeking re-election is because I want to continue with all the work that our local communities are doing in the aftermath of the Grenfell tragedy to try and restore some hope and some recovery to our local residents. We showed on the night of the fire that our communities actually do the work that the council can't do. This council does not understand our local community. Their response to the recovery of this local community at the moment has been very, very poor. People are suffering serious traumatic stress and disorder. They're now encountering neglect from our local council. This has got to change, and we want, if at all possible, to have a Labour council that will be responsive, speak with our residents rather than to them, and to do things with them to restore ourselves rather than doing things to us, which is what they've always done in the past. In the past, they've treated us with contempt. They've had a culture of complacency at the town hall. This has got to stop. And we've got to have community-led responses because we know our communities, we are part of our communities, we live in our communities, and this is what we shall do after May the 3rd.
Thank you so much. God bless, and rest in peace, Judith Blakeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Judith, when I first met her, was rather like one of those old-fashioned ward sisters, but without the pleated cap. She was stern, focused, and rather frightening. Getting to know her better, she remained focused, but there was enormous warmth and a respect for her convictions, her passion, and her knowledge. Judith is, however, one of the victims of the Grenfell tragedy. Her compassion for the victims and survivors was visceral and took an immense toll on her health and well-being, from which she never really recovered. I hope that we'll be able to remember her wry smile, her dry wit, but above all, her commitment to her residents, which was exemplary. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I was pleased to sign this petition, and I want to speak to the part that refers to the council's failure to respond to the litany of safety and fire concerns raised by the Grenfell Tower residents. Because the residents used every correct procedure. They referred their own complaints to the TMO, councillors referred their complaints to the TMO, the former MP referred their complaints to the TMO, residents set up the Grenfell Compact for collective consultation, the Leaseholders Association sent many inquiries to the TMO, there were motions in the council chamber and a petition to the Housing and Property Scrutiny Committee. Yet at every stage, everything was either ignored or batted away with platitudes. The Grenfell Action Group said it would take a catastrophe before anyone was heard, and this was dismissed as a hysterical overreaction. All this is well documented, and all these documents have been given to police officers who are undertaking the criminal investigation. My opinion of this situation is very clear. Everyone in a position of authority ignored the plight of the residents of Grenfell Tower until it was too late. The petition to the Scrutiny Committee was crucial. because it asks the committee chairman to undertake an urgent scrutiny of the TMO and the contractor's management of the refurbishment project that was then underway at Grenfell Tower. It asks for the views and experiences of residents to be canvassed and to be included in the scrutiny report. Instead, the committee agreed that a delegated group of TMO board members would review the issues raised by Mr. Daffan, who spoke at the scrutiny committee, and needless to say, this review found that the conduct of the refurbishment programme had been exemplary. Sadly, it was a paper exercise. It also redesignated all the councillors' complaints as inquiries so that they could be ignored. The members of the task group didn't ask residents for their experiences and views. They visited the construction site, they saw the show flat, the boxing club, and the newly created flats, but none of the flats where there were unresolved problems. The group then commended the contractor on its performance and the excellent work of the TMO team. They also promised that a full project review would be carried out 6 months after the refurbishment was finished. This review never happened. The report to the TMO board was tendentious, inaccurate, and did not meet the brief set out in the petition. It was presented at great length at the end of a very long TMO board meeting, and there was no opportunity to debate it. So I wrote to every member of the TMO board, pointing out the problems with the report. My comments were ignored, and I was reprimanded for sending them to all board members without permission. When the TMO board was referred back to the scrutiny committee, I wrote again to every member of that committee, pointing out the problems with the report. My written comments were ignored, and a procedural manoeuvre by the former committee chairman and the chief executive of the TMO ensured that I was not permitted to speak on the issue. We have corralled members of the public into the Great Hall for this debate in case they should become disruptive. My question is that when all the correct procedures have been observed and totally ignored, and more than 100 people have died as a result, how else can people get this council to listen unless they take direct action and disrupt meetings? So, Councillor Campbell, I do not understand why you've only apologised for the council's failure to react after the fire. Where is your apology for the council's failures to act that preceded the fire?
Well, residents said it's an accident waiting to happen, but nothing will be done until a catastrophe occurs. This is exactly what's happening. There was a Residents' Association meeting last night, and they said that maybe this one-off tragic event may finally persuade the council and the tenant management organisation to talk to us. But their major complaint at the moment, both the residents who live in the neighbouring blocks, particularly those who have been evacuated from their homes, is that they're getting no communication whatsoever from the council or the tenant management organisation. Now, we've just been visited by a young woman and her 12-year-old daughter, and they saw the fire, they witnessed deaths happening in front of their eyes, they're completely traumatised. A letter was hand-delivered to them this morning from the TMO, and it's alleging antisocial behaviour on the part of their dog. I mean, I cannot understand how the TMO can stoop to such a level